Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with us today as we unveil the Parks Canada plaque installation honoring Chief Rabbi Israel Isaac Kahanovitch as a person of national historic significance. I hope you all had an excellent summer. It's great to see everyone back for another year of programming. Before we get going today, it's important for the Jewish Heritage Centre of Western Canada to acknowledge the province of Manitoba is located on the territories of Treaties 1 through 5 and on the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. We respect and honor the treaties and agreements that were made on these lands we share, and we remain committed to strengthening our relationships with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. My name is Harlan Abels. I'm the president of the Jewish Heritage Centre of Western Canada, and I've been given the honor of bringing greetings from our organization this afternoon. Israel Isaac Kahanovitch was a strong leader of the Jewish communities in the prairies and was essential in growing different institutions such as Winnipeg's Talmud Torah for the transmission of Jewish life and faith and the betterment of his community. Rabbi Kahanovitch moved to the hub of the Western Canadian Jewish community right here in Winnipeg in 1907, where he became the rabbi of Beth Jacob Synagogue and eventually chief rabbi of Western Canada through his devotion to the communities in the West. He was a lifelong supporter of Zionism and is a true icon of the community, and we're honored to commemorate him today. I know we're going to hear a bit more about Rabbi Kahanovitch as the afternoon goes on, and there's lots on the plaque that I don't want to spoil for when we go out there. So I just want to thank Parks Canada for helping with the logistics of this honor. Thank you all again for being here, and I'd like to pass it on to, I think Dan is coming up to say a few words to continue today's proceedings. Thank you guys so much.
It will be more than a few words, but don't worry, it won't be the hour-and-a-half lectures that I used to give at the university. Person from the Parks Canada representative was unable to make it at the last moment, so I'd like to say a couple of words about how, in some ways, well, this is an initiative of Parks Canada. Before I was involved, there was some conference that they organized that involved Alan Levine probably representing the Jewish Heritage Center, and Stella Khrinyuk, who's involved, a Ukrainian-Canadian historian, and maybe other people as well. The idea was that Parks Canada, for its persons of historical significance, lacked a broad-based idea. They wanted more ethnics. So a few years later, a representative from Parks Canada came to us, and I was there at this time, and she said, yes, we have a couple of grants for you to have people write papers that will provide the basis for nominating someone for to be a person of historical significance. As it worked out, one of the papers led to the recognition of Rabbi Kahanovitch. The other was an excellent paper, but it didn't have quite the same focus, and we nominated A. Heaps, whom you all know. This was, in due course, went through the system, went through Ottawa, and Heaps and Rabbi Kahanovitch were recognized as persons of national historical significance. Rabbi Kahanovitch had been recognized previously by the province, and there's a plaque further down the hall behind the elevator, where you can see that, but now we have the national one. The Heaps plaque is in the City Hall complex, although on Princess Street rather than King Street, and take a look at it sometime. So Parks Canada has been instrumental in this, and we're very grateful for them for frankly taking the initiative and following it through as we have done to the best of our ability. Now in 1906, and they're different, I haven't figured out quite why some sources say 1906 and 1907 as Harlan did. Both apparently are legitimate. I figured it out, I think, but I'm not absolutely sure. So when Rabbi Israel Isaac Kahanovitch came to a Winnipeg that was only beginning to take shape as we know it. He found a city of 90,000 people that had more than doubled in the previous 5 years and added another 46,000 in the next 5. Some impressive buildings had already gone up, such as the Gingerbread City Hall, but the Canadian West's first skyscraper, 10 stories, the Royal Bank Tower on Main Street, just opened in 1904, as did the CPR station nearby. Queen Street, I didn't know this until I checked it, was renamed Portage Avenue in 1901, and Eaton's department store opened in 1905. The Fort Garry Hotel, today's legislature, the Union Station, all these are in the planning stage, if that. The idea is that Winnipeg was new, and the Rabbi was starting out as a pioneer. The rest of Western Canada followed along. Regina exploded from 2,200 in 1901 to 30,000 in 1911. Calgary grew from 4,100 to 44,000 in round numbers, again, 1901 to 1911. And the Jewish communities grew very rapidly as well. About 5,000 Jews lived in Winnipeg in 1906 and 9,000 in 1911. Between 1911 and 1921, Saskatoon's Jewish population jumped from 77 to 860, Calgary's from 604 to 1241. These and other cities were beginning to form synagogues and actually put up buildings. Winnipeg's much larger Jewish population already supported 2 synagogue buildings before Kahanovitch arrived. Both were in the South End. Now, the South End in 1906 was Henry Street, 1 block south of the CPR tracks. But the new Jewish immigrants were moving into the new areas, that is the North End, and they needed to be accommodated in Beth Jacob Synagogue, which was built in 1903-1904 on Schultz Street, 1 block north of the CPR tracks. This was a very large synagogue for 900 worshipers. Winnipeg's new preeminent synagogue needed a scholarly yet popular and energetic rabbi to cement the burgeoning community, since the small synagogues in Winnipeg and across Western Canada were led almost entirely by prayer leaders who lacked a yeshiva education and didn't really have an ambition to build up the community. They did what they could. Enter Rabbi Israel Isaac Kahanovitch, an outstanding graduate of the famed Slobodka Yeshiva in what's now Lithuania, who made an overwhelming impression when he arrived. As Joseph Wilder recalled decades later, suddenly the whole congregation, including the ladies' gallery, rose. Many men and all the boys stood up and bowed as a stately man, wearing a top hat and a shining robe, almost to the floor, walked towards the bima. Kahanovitch had left Russia in 1905, feeling that the Jews had no future in the anti-Semitic Tsarist Empire with a wave of pogroms that had recently swept the empire. And he came to Scranton, Pennsylvania, where his sister lived. But why did he leave Scranton after only 1 year? It was a prosperous city, not much smaller than Winnipeg, with a Jewish population that was almost the same size. But the Jewish community had been established in the 1860s by Reform Jews of German origin, and they'd established the community institutions, and this left very little room for him to do more than lead a modest, if growing, East European Orthodox congregation. Give you an indication, they bought the building that the Reform congregation abandoned because they had just put up a new, fancier one. Shows you the hierarchy. In contrast, Winnipeg gave Kahanovitch the opportunity to build a community in spirit with community institutions. He began by creating a community body to supervise kosher slaughter, which had gone unregulated. This provided uniformity in the industry and at the kitchen table, although it was contentious for decades after that. Jewish education was next. The 2 existing Jewish schools were far too small for the rapidly growing population, And as the Winnipeg Free Press reported, in 1911, a large meeting of Hebrew citizens held at Beth Jacob Synagogue decided to erect a substantial school building to accommodate 800 to 1,000 children. The rabbi led the community campaign for a new building, and 2,000 people, the Jewish population, at this time 9,000, 2,000 people showed up for the groundbreaking ceremony at Flora and Charles, and Talmud Torah was completed 2 years later, 3 stories, an impressive modern building. Time is too short to do more than outline Rabbi Kahanovitch's numerous contributions to community progress. In Winnipeg, he was deeply involved in creating the United Hebrew Charities to unify various separate actions, the Jewish Orphanage, which took in orphans from across all of Western Canada, the Winnipeg Old Folks Jewish Home, that was the title at the time, the Mizrahi, or Religious Zionist Organization of Winnipeg, and he promoted creation of the Canadian Jewish Congress, in large part to develop united support for Zionism. Other achievements could be cited, such as collecting funds for European Jews during World War I and World War II, recruiting soldiers to fight in the Jewish Legion in the First World War, conquering Palestine from the Ottomans, and so on. Rabbi Kahanovitch was extraordinarily active, speaking at all synagogues, north and south, and often speaking at 5 or 6 different synagogues on Yom Kippur. He met community members at home to mediate and arbitrate personal and business problems, including in one instance a dispute between 2 business partners who are anarchists and presumably not synagogue goers. He officiated at weddings, at synagogues, hotel ballrooms, private residences, and even on his lawn, frequently showing up when a couple showed up unannounced. Somehow, he found time each day to study Torah, Talmud. The same drive can be seen in the rabbi's work across Western Canada. Sherazedek's Rabbi Solomon Frank asserted that the affirmative Jewishness of our Western brethren has as its main source the untiring devotion and effort of the late Rabbi Kahanovitch. Synagogues across the West acknowledged him as their chief rabbi, asking him to resolve disputes. Kahanovitch visited each Jewish settlement between Fort William, or Thunder Bay, and Victoria. He dealt with local disputes, so he celebrated weddings, wrote divorce certificates, took part in community celebrations such as inaugurating Saskatoon's first synagogue in 1919 and Regina's new Talmud Torah in 1924. Perhaps that affirmative Jewishness also had something to do with a contribution that seems to have escaped the view of historians until, frankly, right now, and by me. According to the Winnipeg Free Press in 1917, Rabbi Kahanovitch was charged with illegally importing 900 gallons of brandy for Passover use. Manitoba had just gone dry in 1916. The Tribune reported a little later that it was 90 gallons of whiskey. But whichever it was, the rabbi paid the $200 fine that represented 2 to 3 months of a factory worker's salary. I checked on the newspaper. The Hudson Bay Company was selling men's fine wool suits for $7.95 that day. So $200 was a lot. Now, the rabbi was not a bootlegger, of course. The legislation permitted alcohol for religious purposes, but the procedures were new. The rabbi failed to follow proper procedures and paid the penalty, but he made the Pesach in 1917 a much more joyous occasion throughout the West. And I wonder whether, I guess it's proper to have 4 cups of brandy in the Seder, because brandy, after all, is distilled wine. Now, Rabbi Kahanovitch performed his activities across Western Canada and in Winnipeg with an open spirit. Though strictly Orthodox, he considered it vital to keep the Jewish community united. He told the reluctant directors of an Orthodox cemetery in a Western city to bury a Reform Jew because he is Jewish if he is born Jewish. Similarly, he told the Orthodox community members in Calgary that a socialist and agnostic Parrott school was doing the Lord's work because it was teaching in Yiddish. Similarly, he gained the support of left-wing Zionists at the Canadian Jewish Congress first meeting in 1919 by supporting their progressive agenda, although he did not press, as you can imagine, for immediate realization of these socialist activities. Rabbi Kahanovitch's personality made all these achievements possible. Community activist S.B. Tauber later wrote that Rabbi Kahanovitch impressed me with his magnetic personality, with his intellectually keen mind and erudition. Above all, I was deeply affected by his kindness, politeness, and humility. Community leader and author Joseph E. Wilder called him a saintly man who was revered by all who knew him. Kahanovitch was also very down to earth, literally. He loved to garden. He made things with his hands, such as metal dreidels for children. The family kept nanny goats. His wife made cheese from the milk, and the rabbi famously told the goats in Yiddish not to follow him when he left the yard. Rabbi Isaac Israel Kahanovitch was central to the construction of Jewish life in Western Canada and across all of Canada, with his emphasis on building community institutions and his willingness to accommodate all elements, no matter how they practiced the Jewish religion, or even if they didn't. This makes the Chief Rabbi of Winnipeg and Chief Rabbi of Western Canada a person of national historic significance. Jill, will you? Jill Winograd, from the campus, representing the campus. We are in the campus, and the plaque will be put up on the campus. So.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again. My name is Jill Winograd. I'm the president of the board of the Asper Jewish Community Campus, and on behalf of the campus, I'm really, truly grateful to be here today to welcome you all for this really special moment. As Professor Stone, spoke so beautifully about, Rabbi Kahanovitch wasn't just a rabbi. He was a builder of Jewish life. He looked beyond the walls of one synagogue and thought what our community needed to grow, to be strong, and to have a voice in the wider world. His leadership and vision helped shape the foundation of Jewish life in Winnipeg and across Canada. That's why I think it's so meaningful to see this plaque find a home here on campus. This place brings together the school, agencies, and organizations that carry on that same work of community building and identity that Rabbi Kahanovitch made his life's mission. The fact that we're all gathered here today on a vibrant and active campus is itself a reflection of the seeds that he planted. And I didn't even know he was a gardener when I wrote that. I want to thank the Jewish Heritage Center for their partnership in making sure our history continues to be remembered and shared, and Parks Canada for recognizing Rabbi Kahanovitch's national significance. So thank you all for being here today to honor a leader who helped set us on the path that we still walk together. Thank you.
Now, especially if the rain is held off, we will adjourn outside, see the unveiling of the plaque, and then come back to have a chat, to have some coffee, and to have the cookie, the dainties that we have here. So let's go. I have 2 umbrellas in case there's a problem. I'm supposed to say something official. This is a plaque. It's covered. When you take the cover off, it's called an unveiling. So here we are, and Rabbi Kahanovitch is almost now recognized as a person of national historic significance. Please, Jill and Harlan. you're here, I'll add that in 2 weeks, in the spirit of cross-Western Canada studies, we have a program entitled Beyond the Perimeter. Speakers who grew up in Brandon, Portage, Selkirk, and Esterhazy, Saskatchewan will talk about growing up Jewish in these smaller communities. Not in Rabbi Kahanovitch's day. They're all younger than I am, although not all that much. And anyway, that's at 2 weeks from today, the 28th, 2 p.m. at Temple Shalom. It's very hard to get rooms at the campus. There's a lot going on, so sometimes we take our activities outside. So 2 weeks from today, Temple Shalom. See you then.